All right, hey everyone, it's March 20th, 2016, and you're looking at episode 36 of Percussion. I'm Casey Cangelosi. With me, as always, are Megan Arns,
Hello.
Laurel Black,
Hi.
and Ben Charles just came back actually from visiting Laurel and I, where he gave an excellent masterclass with our last guest, Kate Burns, and they premiered some new duos, and the class went great. So how's it going, Ben?
I am doing well. It's good to be back in Florida. I hear that you guys have cold weather again. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it snowed this morning here, and it was crazy because it was like I ate breakfast and I watched the snow falling, and then I ate lunch and there was no snow on the ground. There's green grass, blue sky, and sunny. And no snow on the ground. Insane! It is so weird. I feel like I'm in a time lapse or something.
So how much does the weather
Can I
affect?
show you guys something real quick?
Oh,
Gosh.
shut up. Put it down.
Hey Ben, yo, check. Can I show you something real quick? How much does the weather affect your guys'
So much.
attitudes as far as getting stuff done?
So much. I just feel like, especially when it's prolonged periods of a certain type of weather, like if it's gray and cold for a long time, especially with no snow, eventually I start to get super bummed. I need
Yeah.
sunshine. I really need sunshine. And then when it is warmer and sunnier, it's, I feel immediate change in my mood, for sure, and productivity.
When I was in graduate school in Illinois, actually, it was funny when it snowed. Like, it made it harder for me to get to the practice room. Like, I didn't want to go outside, but then it also made me want to stay there longer. I wanted to hold myself up and escape from the weather. So I would say actually, I think a lot of people get kind of down with the weather, with seasonal affective disorder or whatever. But for me, actually, it caused me to lock myself in a room and just stay there and get stuff done.
That's what
Yeah.
it does for me. I feel like it has no effect on me at all. I just don't like being outside. I think that's all there is to it. Sunny, cold.
Like ever? You don't like being
Because you're
outside ever?
weird. Because he's weird. It's awful.
Do you like hiking, Casey?
He
No, I
hates hiking.
Do you
Yeah.
like going to the swimming pool, Casey?
I mean, yeah, I guess, but
the beach?
growing up in Utah, we hiked, we camped, skied. So I guess I'm kind of
But
over it. I don't know.
You don't like it. Okay. What about the rainforest?
This is one of our Facebook questions, so I'm just gonna cue off Megan's lead.
What about,
This is fun.
Casey, do caverns count as outside or inside?
That would be inside, and that was so much fun.
That was fun.
The caverns were really cool, and I want to say one thing about the caverns to everyone here. These are called the Luray Caverns, and they're just 30 minutes up the road from Harrisonburg here, where JMU is, and they have a stalactite organ. And they call it an organ. It's not an organ at all. It's a percussion instrument, if anything. Laurel said it's more like a carillon, which I would agree with. The stalactites have these little machines on them, and they're percussed by these little mechanisms, and then there are contact microphones. I think down at the very bottom is where the most resonance is, and it makes this really nice, pretty little percussive sound. So maybe I'll edit in some of that sound right now. Yeah. But there was a question which was, what do you guys do, from Dustin Woodard, what do you guys do outside of percussion when you need a break? And actually this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because one of my first meetings with our deans here on campus, he asked us, tell me something about yourself that does not pertain to this activity for your job and what you do and your art and your craft. And I literally couldn't think of anything that wasn't stupid. It was all, well, I like to play Xbox, and I like to go to movies, and actually I don't really like to go to movies, but Laurel and I watch TV series or whatever. I couldn't think of anything interesting. I realized, man, I'm like a really boring person. So that's my answer. What's your answer?
Well, you like to travel, right? I mean,
I don't like to travel. I really don't. I don't. I know, I'm so lame. I don't. I like being there. Once I'm there, I like the event. I always am happy to be at the event and be with the students and meet new people. But as far as wow,
the
look.
process of traveling.
Well, of course, I don't think anybody really likes that. But even being there, I just don't really get it. I'm there, and okay, and here's that thing I saw pictures of, and now except I'm just there. Oh yeah, something's
I
wrong.
actually like the process of traveling. I mean, because I feel like it's the one time, especially when you're driving, it's the one time where you can't be like doing stuff. I don't know. I like that, and I like just like having time to think. And being in the air for whatever reason, when I'm on an airplane, I like enter this super reflective place every single time on every single airplane that I like can't seem to ever be in when I'm not in the air. It's really weird.
Yeah, I think that a break doesn't necessarily have to mean like some huge escape from real life or anything like that. I think it's just getting out of the practice room and the terrible fluorescent lights or whatever. And for me, every single year since I've been in Florida, over spring break, I've driven down to the Florida Keys and gotten key lime pie. And that, for me, like Megan was talking about, that reflective state, like driving over the water, to me, is that when I get into my little happy place there. But yeah, I think that we always talk about how important practicing is, but you can't practice 24 hours a day. You would get worse if you did that. So yeah, I like taking walks. I like riding my bike. I like going down to the Keys every now and then. So yeah.
Paul Millette asks, what were the reasons you each had for picking the grad schools you did?
The professors, for my undergrad as well. That was, I felt a draw to whoever was teaching at that school and wanted to study with that person. And it really had very little to do with anything other than just the person that was teaching there. Had almost nothing to do with like the band program or the assistantship or whatever else.
I agree. Yeah, the teachers. So Nancy Zeltzman, and I actually also knew of Keith Aleo, and ironically, I never took a lesson with him, but yeah, I knew of him at Boston Conservatory. But what interested me more about that place was that it was a really small conservatory, and there seemed like a lot of potential to observe or investigate the other disciplines, like to maybe watch a dance class or a Linklater class. Or maybe they would let you in some theater class. It turns out that was not the case, but that is why I chose one of the reasons I chose that school.
I want to back up because I should have jumped in on the hobby question, because I want you guys to hold me to something, because we were talking about caves and then we were talking about hobbies, and I'm a certified scuba diver, and I haven't scuba dived in a while, like in so long that I might have to like get recertified. But there's this cave near me.
Come to visit me.
I know. I need to do that. I just need to like be more invested in this hobby, because I think it's so cool. It's amazing, and it sounds so cliche when you're like, it's a whole other world down there, but it totally is, and it's a really interesting experience to scuba dive. So there's this mine called Bon Terre, pretty close to me, and I've just been talking about doing it forever, and I want to scuba dive in that mine, in that cave. So yeah, ask me about that in 6 months, and we'll see if I've gotten there. And for schools, also same as you guys, teachers for sure, teachers. But something that I think went along well with it was having different kinds of school. Having different kinds of schools. So my undergrad was like a small liberal arts college, public university, and then for my master's I went to a big state school, Florida State, and then Eastman, which is not a conservatory but more a conservatory atmosphere. So I found that to be super beneficial, especially as an educator, and being able to relate to different types of students and different experiences, and kind of deciding what I want my studio to look like and what experiences this for the students to have. So yeah, that was a big part of it too.
Do you guys think do you think most students are in school to get jobs, or just to I agree with the whole pick your teacher thing, and I wonder if people pick teachers they think can really get them jobs, or if they are picking teachers that they definitely think they can learn from. I mean, I guess it's the easy answer is it's both, but I wonder what people are drawn to more,
It might just be me, but I was not thinking about really getting a job in my undergrad, and I wonder how many music students are. I mean, I think it's important to think about that for sure, but I think as an 18-year-old picking a college or just deciding to go to college, period, I don't know. I just enjoyed playing music and wanted to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope that answer is not too many, because like college and school is not job training.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. And if we start to treat it like that, we're gonna,
Wow.
it has been, and now we're in a bad situation, and it's gonna keep getting worse if we do. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Honestly, maybe it's a fault of mine. I didn't think of job placement at all when I was in school.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe people don't as much as I thought, but I think Laurel's right. It seems like it has turned into job training and job placement, and I know we get pressured to graduate students and get them placed in jobs. That helps our resumes, and I don't know. It is kind of a different thing, you know.
Yeah, just one more tiny thing. Casey and I were at PASIC and ran into someone who was kind of an acquaintance, and we were having this great conversation, fantastic, and he was a fresh graduate of a doctoral program and had started a new job, which was fantastic, but said that there was such a learning curve, and he wished that his DMA program had prepared him to know how the administration works or something, or had prepared him like not in ways that was here's how to be an expert in the field of music. And yeah, I kind of had to hold back this rather violent reaction of like, because it's not job training. Because
I don't know about you guys, but I had a class in my doctorate called, the title was something like teaching music in college or something like that, and it kind of did go over the basics of like here's how to make a resume, here's how to make a CV, here's how to what college committees do, that sort of thing.
Because I've heard of classes like that. I've never taken one, but so much of that stuff, and maybe it was a wonderful class, so I'm sorry if I sound like I'm criticizing the idea of the class, but so much of that is reference material you could just look up. Like
Yeah,
how to,
and I mean honestly, like it was kind of like an easy A class. Like I would say the good thing about it was that like we made like a CV and we brought it in and we critiqued each other's, and sometimes you make something that you think is great and then you see someone else's and you go, oh wow, this was really terrible. So I think it was a good buffer in that sense, but yeah, most of that sort of stuff, like I mean, just read John Parks's paper that we talked about before, watch that episode.
yeah.
I think it depends on the person too. I think that a lot of schools are starting these entrepreneurship programs, arts entrepreneurship programs, and I think that's wonderful because I think if you gravitate towards that way and you find yourself particularly inclined to do administrative stuff and entrepreneurship projects, that those avenues are there because there are an increase in jobs in that area and less in performance and education. So I think that opens up a whole new sector of jobs for artists. So I think it's great that that's there, but maybe not necessarily part of the curriculum.
Yeah, it just seems like there's such good substantive teaching stuff to get at, like how you present something, how you talk, how you introduce interesting material, like how do you show a piece of music to a music appreciation course and make it interesting as opposed to just like showing it because you're supposed to. It seems like that seems like true teaching secrets. Like I want to learn that. I don't want to learn how to make a syllabus. I will just copy the next guy's syllabus and insert my own material. I'll just copy the CV. That's like stuff you can learn how to do in a day. That's like I don't know. It's just interesting that it's turned into job training to the point where that's what we're teaching, and it's like you don't really. I don't know. I probably sound.
Well,
really
I'm sure they're not all like that. We just encountered that in conversation. So yeah, to be fair, I'm sure. Yeah.
One thing I've learned is like a lot of people stress out about like the format of the CV and all, and then like when you don't get the job, it's like what did I do wrong? And for a long time, I thought that like to get a college teaching job, you had to be a great player and you had to be a great teacher, and like that was it. And those things are important, but like there's also this whole area of recruiting, and like if a college has someone that is this good of a player, this good of a teacher, and this good of a recruiter versus someone that's a great player and a great teacher and has no idea of how to recruit, the one that's worse, so to speak, is going to be better because they have an idea of recruiting, and there's so many things of recruiting and scholarship and that sort of thing that I think aren't driven into people enough in graduate programs, that you have to get around all these different areas of being a professor other than just playing and teaching. Does that make sense?
I can maybe make an analogy with a job interview I sat on once. Not an interview I was taking, but I was witnessing a portion of another interview, and this candidate came in and described materials that you could it was just reference material. So let me teach you something about this instrument. And this instrument has this many keys, it has this range, it has this, it has that, it has that. And definitely the students walked away going, yeah, that was good, I learned something. But it was definitely something you could look up in an encyclopedia.
Yeah, it's all in Grove.
It's all in Grove, it's all in the Adler orchestration book. It's all like right there, and Laurel, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because we kind of had a really good discussion with our colleagues after this, because I was kind of thinking like, no, I'm not impressed, and a few of the others were thinking, that was good, we walked away knowing something new about the organ, and I'm thinking, no, this is like a specialist. We should get something from them that we can only get from them, like something that just they could tell us.
Yeah.
Their point of view or one of their experiences or something. It's just not good enough to me to. I'm going to retell you what's already been written down 100 times, and it's just like, it's fine, but it's weak sauce. It's not inspiring whatsoever.
Casey, I have a quick question for you.
Oh.
Did I give new information when I was at JMU, or did I just talk about stuff like you're talking about?
So that would be a really good example of the magic stuff in between. So you're giving, I don't know if you gave new information, but you gave information they need to hear that's really relevant and important in your own way and with your own personal attitude, so that it was said to them convincing to where they could have it in a good way. So I think it's material they need to know and that they've probably heard before, but it's really, really valuable, and you presented it in a new way. So yeah, totally good.
It's getting bigger right now.
No, and actually, yeah, your way of describing and teaching is that thing that I think people should be learning. It's like, yes, that's what you need to learn how to do. You need to learn how to know your stuff so well and be able to communicate it well. That's what really matters. And hey, speaking of all of this stuff, Ivan Trevino, our friend Ivan Trevino, asked some questions about Game of Thrones, and then takes a little jab at Ben. But then he has a serious question, which is, Megan, what's the one really important thing about your job that you didn't learn in school?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this, and I can't pinpoint one thing at the moment. And it's funny because a lot of the things that I didn't learn in school, which were things that were kind of mentioned before that you can learn pretty quickly, not quickly, but you can learn through experience on the job. And those are things like recruiting students, how much you should be taking your students on the road, how much you should be going on the road to recruit students, teaching at a variety of levels. So, I mean, when I was doing my graduate degrees, I feel like the undergrads were at a very high level. So I think I had less experience teaching less experienced students. And so getting this variety of levels of students and how to treat a freshman class when they're coming in from so many different backgrounds at different levels. And hosting guest artists, like all the booking stuff and making itineraries and making it fit into your schedule. And I think for all of these things, it's, you can have general ideas. That there are things that relate between schools, but it's also very specific to the school. So I think that's something, I'm going completely away from Ivan's question, but I think it would be helpful for schools, and this has been true for every school I've taught at, to provide some kind of handbook of experiences from first year on the job from other teachers. And I've talked about that with my colleagues at each school I've taught at, and that's something that we've thought about making, and it's never happened. But I think the amount of time spent, I don't know if you guys have felt this in your jobs at all, but the amount of time it spent took me that first year to figure all this stuff out for the first time. Whereas if I had maybe a journal of experiences organized in some way, it would have been easier to refer to. Luckily, everyone I work with is very open to asking, me asking questions and things, so that was very helpful. But yeah, okay, so to get back to Ivan's question, I can think more of things that I wish I wouldn't have spent learning, and I think this is partially because of my situation right now where I'm trying to, I'm a young teacher and I'm trying really hard to do well at my job. I'm also trying to develop my performing career and my side projects, and so I feel like I constantly have 2 full-time jobs while I'm still technically in school studying for comps. And something that I appreciate the history of music and theory of music so much. I appreciate it so much, and I took numerous classes in my 4 music degrees, and I don't understand why I still have to study it, because I'm not teaching it, and it definitely informs the way that I teach and what I teach, but I don't have time to
Say
study
it,
for
Megan.
this
Just
test.
say it.
I don't have time to study for this test, right? And it's really hard to fit that into my life when it doesn't feel relevant to my career at this moment. So I wonder how many people are out there that feel that same way, and if it's just a matter of like not taking a job until you fully finished your degree or what, but or just dropping not finishing your degree because you're just moving on if you don't need it,
If I could touch on one thing that Megan said. Megan said something about coordinating and like bringing in guest artists, and I had no idea until I did it that takes so much more effort than you would ever believe.
Yeah.
even if it's like, someone that like when I went to JMU and Casey hosted me, like even if it's someone you have a great connection with, you talk to all the time, they're just coming in to, easily do a class for your students, not like a big recital or anything. It is such a commitment to bring someone to your university, and it's, for the most part, or I should say for a very large part, it's not at all required of professors to do that. So if you have a professor that is willing to do that, that really says something about the professor. I think that they're willing to put in all that extra work to get someone to come there. Because, like, for example, in about a week and a half, I'm hosting a composer and a drum set player at the same time, and one of them is staying at my house, and it's just like, I'm happy to do it, but it is. I've probably sent 200 emails, no joke, about all this stuff, between getting sponsors, getting the university to pay for it, coordinating itineraries, all this stuff. It's a whole lot of work.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought of one thing maybe that I could answer Evan's question with if I had to choose one thing, and that would be some kind of class. This is like in a DMA degree, assuming that you're going to be teaching college students. So I think it would be interesting to have some kind of class or seminar or like really intense discussion retreat or something about the job market in music, because we're just feeding into that, and I think about it all the time. We talk about it on the podcast a lot, but like to really address that in a classroom setting before going out into the real world, because otherwise it's just going to keep perpetuating itself, and like we're going to keep putting students out who aren't going to be able to find jobs, and maybe sending them out without knowing that it's hard to find a job, or without having these entrepreneurship skills, if that is something that they're interested to create their own job.
A quick question about that, and actually I'll answer my own question as well. But have there been any things that you've done, like obviously we kind of trained to teach at a college, or at least I did. Have you done anything in addition that's relevant to music to kind of, I guess, help yourself along? For example, I maintain a private teaching studio of high schoolers, and probably most of you have done that too at some point. But just recently, I actually got a very cool gig writing concert reviews for a local paper, which is something I never thought I would do, but it pays, and I get to go to concerts for free, which is kind of neat.
Well, and I guess contrary to what Megan just said, now you can apply all your music history and all of that directly somewhere.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's one of those things where I didn't ever intend to get this job. It just kind of came across my way, and I agreed to do it. And yeah, it's like for me, it was all the training I spent writing a paper for my DMA. All of a sudden, like that was one of the references I was able to show them. Like, look, I can write about music successfully,
Yeah,
and that turned into this job. So I don't know if
that's
you guys
really.
have any other. I mean, Casey, obviously you compose and you make a fair amount of money off your compositions, and
I think the closest thing I can get to that is and it's along with composing, but I've just developed finale chops as like a high school student, and then through college that landed me a TA position for my teacher's class. I TA'd the technology class, which probably 75% of that course was just finale. So clock in, log my hours, and help students with sometimes really easy things and sometimes really difficult things, and I learned stuff, and that led to some. I did some manuscript work for a theater company once when I was working in Houston.
I knew someone as an undergrad that did like engraving for a music company. Like they would send him like handwritten scores, I guess, and he would have to put it in finale and make it look nice.
Laurel, I want to hear your answer. What did school not prepare you for your job?
How to deal with crazy people.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's school's job to do that. I don't know. I think the job I did, being a staff accompanist, my degree wasn't about that. So in a way, nothing about my degree directly prepared me for my job that I had at the school in terms of that. It was all indirect, and so in my case, having to study a lot of history and theory helped me immensely because I'm playing so much more rep than I otherwise would be if I was only playing percussion music. But yeah, something that was said but was perhaps not thrown out quite so realistically was that in school you're in this kind of protected mecca of great music and great art and those that care, and once you're out of school you're going to have to play a lot of crap, and you're going to have to play a lot of things that it's bad music and maybe you don't care about it. Like literally I graduated and my first job was playing Old MacDonald Had a Farm at a daycare. That is literally what I was doing, which was fine because it was a job, but I think there's a kind of like transition, like a kind of mental and emotional transition that comes with that isn't talked about, because depending on who your teachers are, and just thinking about Boston, Nancy is not one of those people that went through school and then got a job. Like she did her bachelor's and then was just herself and worked at a health food store and just did what she was passionate about, and now she's a teacher. But others have gone straight from master's or doctoral programs and now they're teaching at any kind of school, not just where I went. And like there's something about that to me, without something in between, without some real world in between, that's like, you don't quite know, dude. You don't quite know what this can be, and perhaps what challenges people might face. So I don't know. That's my ramble about that.
I would just contribute that I think unprepared is not the same as unexpected. So when I got my first job at Concord University with Laurel, and we're teaching music appreciation, teaching percussion, teaching music technology, I even conducted the jazz band. There was a lot of different things to do. As a lot of small schools are, you end up doing a lot more than your instrument, which was really, really great. I'm really glad I did all those things. But I didn't expect, after my grad studies where I was learning really hard rep and I was practicing my 5-lits against any other lits possible and doing all the crazy polyrhythmic combinations I could, to then get my big school teaching job and have to teach certain music minors, for example, how to read, literally how to read notation. And so that was unexpected, but I felt really well equipped to do that. I think going as far as they do make us go, it should really help you to do that more thoroughly than someone who doesn't go that far. So to students who would ever say, like, well, I know everything I need to know to teach high school or to teach middle school, why do I have to learn this hard piece? It's like, yes, you won't be teaching that piece to these young students, but you're going to be much, much better equipped to teach what you need to them, and it's just going to make you more worldly and broad and just more than competent. It's going to make you wise. So that's the thing I would say. What do you got there, Laurel?
Well, you kind of just said it, so so no, I'm pretty good. And I think it would be a mistake to think that school is supposed to prepare you for the real world in every sense that it could, because it just won't. It just won't.
Yeah. Megan, if it makes you feel any better, Laurel and I talked a lot about, should we just keep working or should we go back to school? What should we do? So I don't know. That is tough.
Yeah, it's hard, and I think that professors have a very powerful. They're very powerful in a way that you can almost like create your own types of class. So if there's something that you see missing from the curriculum or something, you can teach an independent course to your graduate students or something like that. So a lot of things that I was thinking of, the things I wish I'd learned in school, I'm like, well, my teacher offered a separate class about pedagogy and or this teacher offered the chance to coach graduate students or things like that. So, yeah, a lot of times the professors actually do fill that void, and that kind of goes all the way back to the beginning of this conversation is choosing the people that you want to be around and study with.
Yeah, great. This leads into another little portion, or excuse me, another question, which was from, let me find it, Brandon Arvay, thanks again for a question. He says, Casey, are there noticeable differences between lessons you've learned between the current job and the old job? And I would say definitely yes. I think here at JMU the level is much more kind of across the board. And that's in contrast to the last gig where I think it was pretty much open admission, where the levels would be radically different. So here it's easier to manage in that you can assume a certain level, a base level that the students are all at, and it's much easier to put ensembles together, whereas before I had to juggle rep a little differently because I had one student that I really wanted to include but was just starting, and another student that was fantastic and a really, really, really good player. Yeah, and then the size of the programs have been really different. The adjustment here has been just the size. It's huge. There's 4 sets of Walter Light timpani and like 12 marimbas on the premises, and it's just, that's an adjustment. Carlos Johnson is asking, what were some of your favorite episodes that you've shot thus far? Most funny, thought-provoking, etc. Who are some of the guests you would like to have on next, and what are each of our summer plans? I have to say, Alejandro Viñao's episode was really, really cool. We just got a lot out of him. I thought Mark Applebaum's was especially good. But really, I mean, so many of them have been really, really good. I feel like some we get a ton out of, and some we laugh really hard. And talking to some of my students and people I meet, those two things seem to be kind of equally preferred by different people. Some people are kind of here just to laugh and relax, and other people are here to really get something out of it. What about you guys?
I really liked the episode, the number 6, the competition episode we did with Matt Penland and Elizabeth Galvin. Those are 2 of my very good friends, but I thought we just had a very interesting kind of thought-provoking discussion about competitions. And then, of course, I think Alejandro Viñao was very up there for me, as well as I'm a huge Anders Estrand fan, so any time I get to talk to Anders is a good day.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I've loved a lot of episodes, but after recording with Anders, I felt particularly light, just like happy and light, and that was very enjoyable. I think the funniest one has to be Ted. Yeah.
That one was
definitely
fun.
I think that wins for me.
I have a feeling Megan probably liked the episode with Rob Dylan.
I did. No, I was going to say I also particularly enjoyed John Parks. I thought that was a really great episode. And Keith Leo back in the beginning when we were still figuring all this out. That was a cool one.
Also Gordon Stout.
Yeah. I wasn't there for that, but I enjoyed watching it. And Julie Hill was really great. That one I thought was really good. And the Mark Applebaum, I mean, having him on here was so cool. And
yeah,
just, I don't know, the initial, just his presence, and the wall and the glasses and the hair and everything, it was just like, wow, I can't believe this is happening right now. This is amazing. How do we do this?
But pretty much all of them I've enjoyed, a lot.
And they're also different, too. That's what's been so interesting is that the guests totally, each episode is so different because each guest is so different.
Yeah.
For sure. Hey, Ted Jackson asks, what's everyone's short-term and long-term goals musically? Appointments, compositions, presentations, project, etc. Or maybe not musically, something else. And I thought this was a good one because I'm doing this new faculty academy here at JMU, and a lot of what we work with in the seminars is what's your next big project? What are you aiming towards? What are you going for? And I never really have a good answer because I kind of feel that I'm doing it. I mean, I just want to write more pieces. I want to get pieces played more places, but there isn't one nice big stamp I can think of, and I don't know if there ever really was.
Can I turn this? I want to change the question. I think this will be okay.
Ben, you can't change the question. You can't change the question.
I just made a rule that I can change the question.
Not allowed.
You can't change the question.
What is one piece that has been a goal of yours to play at some point that you have yet to play that's like a big undertaking that you want to do, but you just haven't done it yet? For me,
Paranorgrad Iching.
That's a big one. I was going to say Safa for me.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have one right now.
Yeah, I don't like music. So no, I just want to finish I have a stack of adaptations to look at and do, and I don't know why I'm so into that right now, but I am. So I would just like to finish what I've started.
And Casey?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of one. There are a lot of things I would. There are a lot of things I would love to play. It's
Monograph 4.
Definitely. I don't know. It's weird. It's not as simple as that. Like I look at my dad's grant in mathematics in Utah that we talked about on his episode, and it seems like a very clear-cut goal, like reform math ed in public school. And there's steps you would have to take to achieve that, and it would be proposal, get the grant, put the grant in motion, and then evaluate after 5 years. Then it seems like it has this nice ladder to it, and I just can't think of anything that is that has that many steps to it. And in fact, when I was doing these exercises, they didn't have enough steps. Mine were just, you take the commission, you write the piece, and you turn it in. I don't know what else to say.
What does anyone have a non-musical goal for yourself?
I would like to fix scholarship things in large places, I guess. There's more supply than demand in music. Yeah. And it would just be nice to, and I think that's fine. That's great. People want to do this more than it needs to be done. Great. But it would just be so cool if people didn't have to, take such a big chunk out of their lives in order to do that.
Yeah, like if our government supported the arts more, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. If there was more community involvement and government support.
Yeah, or that universities... I have convinced myself for some reason that if universities stopped accepting money for buildings, that tuition would stop going up. Because you accept money for a new building, and then you have to staff it, and then you have to put power in it, and then you have to pay for the water to it, and then you have to heat it, and you have to cool it, and it's like, hello, this is where, and then you have to, have like 35 administrators in every building, because they can only do like 3 things each, and yeah, I have a really crappy attitude about that, but my non-musical goals, I love to write, and I have a fiction and a non-fiction idea that has been stirring around in my body for a long time that I should probably just get out. So that would be my non-musical goal.
That's cool. I have a non-musical and musical goal tied into one, which is 2 chamber groups that I play with are currently, our kind of roadblock recently has been that we're not a nonprofit organization. So we've been doing a lot of looking into what it takes to be a 501c3 and an LLC, and both of those organizations are in the process of submitting for that. So that's big
cool.
goal. Yeah.
Well, let's just keep moving along here. Graham asks, what are some things you folks do to establish in a new job? Establish yourself in a new job, whether you just move to a new place or begin a new teaching gig.
Play recital.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, play a recital and go and attend concerts, attend workshops and conferences. There were things when I got this job here at Missouri, even though I'd lived in Missouri, I had never been to the state education conference before. There were a couple drumline competitions I had never been to before, so going to those types of events and either volunteering or presenting a clinic or judging, but also just being around to meet people. And I think also a big thing for me recently has been letting people know there's so much going on all the time everywhere, and we're all spread so thin, then our audiences start to be spread thin too. So I think committing to bigger projects with your studio and then like really inviting people to them, advertising really well and trying to fill a hall so that it's not just another concert,
I would say a big one for me is, this sounds like really obvious, but don't be a jerk.
Hey!
If you're nice, people will like you and want to work with you more. And Tom Burrett did a class here a few years ago, and he talked about this, and he said, like, people like to work with me not because I'm a great musician, but because I'm like a nice person. And I think that I've seen firsthand, like, a lot of times when a great musician is a jerk, they don't get called back. And when there's a mediocre musician that's a really nice person, they do get called back. So yeah, I think just being nice is a big deal.
Yeah, of course. I guess I would say don't be afraid to change things. I think a lot of times I've seen it with hires, and I've sometimes felt it myself, where I'm spending a really long time trying to just go with the flow and not disrupt anything that's already happening. But they maybe hired you because they want a change and they want things to be different. Laurel knows we hired a good friend of ours at the last gig, and it took him so long to feel comfortable with, so can I change this? Can I change that? And we were like, yes, it's yours. Change it. Do it how you want it.
Yeah, there's a certain degree of don't ask permission. You just do it.
Yeah, I guess, or I don't know, maybe give yourself some time, give yourself a set chunk of time of like, okay, I'm just going to absorb for this long, and then boom, I'm just gonna do it, because I feel like even here I've kind of sat and absorbed for a little too long. It's like, man, I should have just changed this a long time ago,
One thing you did change. Can you talk about how you changed lessons?
Yeah, sure. So with a big studio, I thought, in a new studio, I thought it was important that I be able to teach everybody. So there's myself and 2 other adjuncts, and with the way the class load and ensemble load is, it just made sense for me to have a alternating alternating weeks. So I alternate privately and then in small groups, and it was just a really good way to see everybody. And so far I've liked it. I don't know if I'll do it every semester like that, but I'm thinking of having a different kind of lesson orientation every year, or maybe every semester even. So we may go back to something simple and traditional now that I've had everyone for a whole year. We may go back to just, okay, I have these 15 people for an hour or something like that.
For me, I think the biggest change I made here, kind of inadvertently almost, is that like when I started, I think I had 8 people in my percussion ensemble, and a lot of people would try to find pieces for 8 people so that everyone got to play. But then if you do that, like, you can't have 8 people learn a whole hour of music, like, or I guess you can, but it's difficult. So I started doing like trios and quartets to try and build up the length of a concert to where everyone had a manageable amount of music, but I could also put on like a full concert. And then it just kind of worked, and I've for the most part done a lot of smaller works and then like a couple of larger works each semester.
I do that the same way, Ben, and I found that to work in the time we have as well, because these smaller groups can rehearse sometimes independently easier, and also at different times if their schedule allows. So rather than just having like 2 hours of percussion ensemble time a week, I'll use those 2 hours for big pieces, and then everything else is kind of scheduled around that.
And you can match up like ability levels better.
Yes, totally. Yeah, and change it up so people get to work with different people and
Something that kind of inspired me in this new faculty academy, and it inspired me to make this lesson arrangement, was they said if you're not doing your self-fulfilling projects, and you're not doing the sharpening the saw, as they say, doing those things for yourself that, and I don't mean relaxing and catching up on Game of Thrones, I mean working on those projects, or like learning SOFA. If you're not doing that thing that's going to make you a better teacher, ultimately you have to do something about it, and you have to change something, and you shouldn't just wallow in that state. And that's something I was going to ask you guys. Do you guys have a sharpening the saw kind of project, or is it just like constantly trying to keep your head above water? Because that's how I often feel. So I'm just trying to get through all the things there are to do.
For me, one thing I noticed is that when you're out of school, you don't need to practice anymore. Like, I could not practice and keep this job, but that doesn't interest me. So I've made sure, I've been very adamant about scheduling, times on my calendar to practice, and making sure that I continue to do that.
Yeah, well, it's amazing watching people. I have so many friends who I haven't seen them play for 2 years, and then I see them, and they were amazing before, and now they're so much better. Like, even though, we don't have to practice, I think you're totally right. It's so worth it, and you absolutely just excel and excel and excel.
But you're right, Ben. I think teaching is all-consuming, and it will just fill your schedule, and you have to schedule times in. And I think also for me, I have to schedule performances, because if I don't do that, the urgency becomes less, and it's not that I don't enjoy doing it. It's just that other things start to take over, know. So I try to schedule a lot of performances, chamber and solo as well.
All right. Well, let's just keep moving along here. Whistler asks, what's some advice you can give to an undergrad student who is split between wanting to pursue percussion performance or music education for grad school?
I've never been in that exact situation where I was caught between those 2 things. I don't know. I would probably just say, like, imagine not doing one of them, and there you go.
Well, I think also if you have an undergraduate background in music education, maybe that would be a good time to pursue performance, because I think with a master's degree, that's, at least in my case, that was the most time you could carve out to practice. It seems like the master's degree in performance in a lot of places is designed around you, like, really spending a lot of time with your instrument and diving into it. So I think with education, you'd have more education classes. So I think it depends on what have you done before, because I've heard I did all the degrees in performance and ethno and nothing in education. So, but I've heard from other friends that they really value having that undergrad in music education. So I think it depends on what you want to do and what you've done previously.
Yeah, I did my undergraduate degree in education,
Mm.
and one thing that I learned from doing that is that like some people say like, oh, I'm going to do my undergrad in education as a backup so I can teach middle school band if I don't make it in performance. And there are some people that actually really want to teach middle school band and that are very good at it. And it's, I think, a very hard thing to do to teach middle school band. Casey, I know, has remarked before, like, teaching middle school band is way harder than teaching college percussionists. Like, I know exactly what all my students are doing and how to fix their problems. And middle schoolers, like, I don't, I've never really played flute. I took a methods class on it. So I think that you can't use music education as a backup. Now, if you're really split, you really love teaching and you really love performance, then, like, I hate to say it, I think you just kind of need to choose which thing you want to go into more. And I think having an education background has made me a better college educator. And I also still enjoy working with middle and high school students kind of when I get the chance. But I know some people that only want to play in a symphony. They have no interest in teaching whatsoever, and that's fine too. But for me, I think it was the right choice to get my undergraduate degree in music education and really focus on being a better player when I was an undergrad, and then turn that into graduate performance programs to kind of hone those skills.
Well, okay, you guys, I think it was a good Q&A episode, and thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you all next week, and yeah, have a good one. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.